Forget the G7. If there's one party leaders want to be invited to, it's Bilderberg. That's where world leaders from politics to industry discuss. Well, we have no clue what they discuss because Bilderberg is an invite-only, ultra-secret conference where the press is not allowed, no minutes are released, and security is super tight. But to whet conspiracy theorist appetite, they are kind enough to release the guest list.
Talk to Andrew Kakabadze. He's the author of the book Bilderberg People. He teaches at the International Management Development at the Cranfield School of Management. He is also a fellow of the British Academy of Management. Thank you so much for coming in. A lot of people actually see a lot of these gatherings with a lot of skepticism, possibly because they're not invited. But how much is this a secret society and how much is it just the world politicians and decision makers gathering to exchange ideas?
It's a private meeting. It's not a secret society. The interest is who gets invited. And in many ways, if you take any government, the cabinet meets in private, but what we have is a series of journalists who understand what's happening. So what you really have is a gathering of people who come together to discuss issues. We were probably one of the very first to go and interview some of the Bilderbergers. It was very difficult to get access to them. But what they said was the meeting is really more chaotic than people think. But what we noticed is that themes do emerge. So one of the accusations against the Bilderbergers is that, in fact, they are pulling strings behind the scenes. As far as we can gather, they're the ones who identify the strings who other people pull.
And what's the ideology among these people? What's good for banking? What's good for big business is good for the rest of us?
Sort of. It's not that clear, to be honest with you. What you have is a meeting of politicians, a meeting of finance, a meeting of business, and occasionally a meeting of third sector organizations. But by and large, the theme that's emerging is the Anglo-American view of capitalism and view of finance.
But this is not, I mean, when you say it's just a meeting, who exactly chooses who gets invited? This is not like the Masons, or it's not, is it always the same people showing up year and year again at this meeting?
That's the most interesting thing. When we ask people who invited you, well, they say, I got a call, or I got a letter, or some very nice person called me and told me very flattering things about me. And what we seem to get is, on the one hand, it's a great honor to be invited, whoever invited me. You might have been to Davos a couple of times, and then in that network you were found, or you wrote something, or you were a person who made a statement. And equally, we found other people who said that it's the biggest waste of time when you go there. It's basically the rich and the famous who go there to say nice things to each other.
It's a social club.
It's a bit of a social club, but we concluded it was not. There is a social club feel to it, and there is a meeting where people talk in private. It's not secret, it's in private, where they express their views, but views do emerge over a period of time.
How important is it that actually our politicians talk together? In the last 3 years, what the crisis has taught us is that you really have to have coordinated action around the world if you want to deal with a global problem. Is this kind of meeting useful just because you get FaceTime with your counterpart over, on the other side of the pond, that you need to somehow know what he's thinking to realize what you're thinking, certainly in policy terms?
The meetings seem to be very useful. I'm not sure they can actually prevent crises, but they can set a way forward. So I'm sure with the Bilderbergers over the years, one thing that's been averted has been crisis, war, conflict. The fact that these people get together and begin to talk does smooth things out. The issue, however, is that they smooth things out in whose favour and in what direction.
Please.
No, if he says that, you've avoided crisis, you can just imagine what it would have been like had these guys not met.
Yes, exactly. So there's a lot of good coming out of the Bilderberg meetings. It's not all bad, and it's not all negative, and it's not all conspiratorial.
But the fact that it is so secretive, so opaque, means there are so many conspiracy theories around this group, and have been for so many years.
Absolutely. There are many conspiracy theories, and the conspiratorial people tend to get overexcited, but they have a point. And the point is, what is the theme that's emerging? Which direction is thinking being shaped? And if you want to have a purpose for the Bilderbergers, is that they shape the way we think. They don't tell us what to do.
But why not make it transparent?
Well, because like any meeting, if you're going there and you're going to talk openly, would you talk openly about your own ideas that could damage your share price of your company if you didn't at least have some guarantee of privacy? It's privacy, not secrecy.
Andrew Kakabadze, thank you so much for joining us.
The question is, Maybe they're not a secret society and they're just a private one.
From what is written about the group, it seems they are indeed impressive in their breadth and power. But there are other powerful groups that meet regularly, like the G7 and the G20. The major difference here is that those meetings are not secret. If the Bilderberg Group is indeed the shadow world government, well, they are doing a terrible job. Or maybe they are getting exactly what they want. And is it really true that after they discuss something in their agenda, then we see surprising effects in the real world? There are people that find it difficult to believe that the oil shock of 1973 could have been masterminded by the Bilderberg Group, as many claim. For starters, the United States Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, had not attended that year. But at the press conference of the following Bilderberg meeting in 1974, the declarations of Prince Bernhard could raise some questions.
L'année dernière, le thème, c'était la possible crise d'énergie. Sans savoir, nous étions des petits prophètes et la crise d'énergie est venue beaucoup plus vite que tout le monde des participants ont pensé.
I want to ask the American economist Dr. Richard D. Wolff about the relation between democracy, capital, and the Bilderberg Group.
I wanted to talk to you about the Bilderberg Group. Why do you think these people meet regularly?
There are splits and disagreements among the people who run modern capitalist societies. And one of the big issues they disagree about is whether or not they really can rely on the capitalist system and the market to manage modern society in a way that allows them to keep their dominant position, their wealth, their influence, and so on. There are those who believe that the market is a fantastic institution, that if each corporation does exactly what is most profitable for it, this will work out to be the best possible society for everyone. Then there are other corporate leaders who say that the levels of inequality common to capitalist societies create severe vulnerability, that you are going to make the mass of people who have middle or low income eventually decide to use their political power, they are the majority, to use politics to undo the results of a capitalist private economic market system. And that therefore you must take steps to deal with that. Notice, everyone is agreed among them that what they want is capitalism to continue. The people to run the corporations continue. But one group doesn't want to worry about taking care of social problems, and the other group does. And so they have meetings because these disagreements can become explosive.
Do you think this group uses their capital to overcome democracy and the will of the people?
They have no interest in democracy. They never did. And let me explain why. Every one of these people, they operate their enterprises in a fundamentally anti-democratic way. For example, the board of directors does not submit its proposals or its strategies to the entire employees to get their approval. That would be a democratic way to run an enterprise. They don't do that. What the enterprise is in capitalism is a systematic training of the population against democracy. If you spend 5 days a week, 9 to 5, at your factory or in your office, you are in an environment that teaches you to accept orders from whoever is above you in the hierarchy. There is no democratic control. We all talk about a democracy that isn't there. And partly the talk
is a compensation because it isn't the reality. 300 years ago, we got rid of kings, but the kings didn't go away. They were clever. They went inside the capitalist corporation and they changed their name. It's now CEO.
Would you say that these kind of groups are think tanks, or they're rather the biggest capitalist lobby ever?
I prefer the lobby because thinking is not their strong suit. What they do is they hire people to do the thinking for them. I went to all the elite schools in this country. I know all these people. They're managers. That's what they've been trained to do, to manage, to identify who they can rely on, who has technical knowledge of this or that. So they bring people like me, a critic of the system. They want to know how people like me look at all of this. And I always have an ambivalent feeling, wondering to myself, who am I helping here? You know, these are not my people, you know.
We are laughing, but it actually feels hopeless. Do you think there is any way around this?
In the heyday, when these systems are powerful, they are powerful because they have persuaded the mass of people that it must be this way.